Awesome. All right. So thank you, Dee, for the introduction for everything. A lot of new faces. Great. I'm John. I'm sorry. I have to. I don't know where to look. I have an iPad set up and a laptop set up right now. So good morning to everyone. As Dee had mentioned, this is our Zoom office introduction to what boundary marking is, and she kind of touched upon it about what we use it for and how and some of the reasons for it. And so, if anyone here has ever been to one of our properties or has been a land monitor, I'm sure Bruce might be able to attest to that. You know, when you're out in the middle of the woods, everything looks the same. So you don't really know where your property is, where our property is, kind of thing. And sometimes when it comes down to it, you really do need to know where that line is. Most of the time, actually. And so what this crew does is goes into different properties and we approximate the boundaries using fundamental survey techniques. We use GPSs, we use compasses, stuff like that, and we mark the corner bounds with PVC pipes and even some flagging. We have these little metal medallions that we put up to signify BCT properties. And so the purpose of this isn't to find an exact line. We're not professional surveyors. If there's ever an instance where one of our boundary lines, there was some encroachment and it wasn't exactly sure where our line was, that's when we would have to go and get a professional survey done. Because with the techniques they use, with the instruments they use and their experience, they know exactly where the property is, where the property line is, and it is the most accurate form of it, and it's also defensible in court. The stuff that we do is just an approximation, but it is really, really good to have, a general idea of it, because most of the time, most of our properties are out in the woods somewhere, and just abutting more conservation land or open space or something like that, and there won't necessarily be those problems. If there is a problem that crops up, that's when we would make the determination to have a professional survey done or something like that, depending on the severity. So yeah, is that clear to everybody? Cool, cool, yeah. So we'll just go through it real quick. Dee should have sent you guys some packets that we made up. It got split into two. If anyone was a part of our boundary crew last year with the guy Jeff, who was here before me, he had this whole thing done, and I pretty much split it up into two packets. There's one. Let me share my screen. There's the document prep work for the office. That's just something to let you know how to get some of the supplies that we would be bringing in the field. But that is specifically something that we would have done before we actually go out into the field. So that's just some information for you guys on how we obtain some of this information, how we get the deed, the survey plans, and all that stuff. So here's a deed right here, and then we scroll down. We also find a survey plan. What we're really moving towards is having a map like one of these, and this is where our intern and now our AmeriCorps placement, Mary, really comes in. If anyone has ever heard of GIS, it's a really, really powerful software, mapping software, and she has a lot of experience doing it. So she has been really plugging away, trying to come up with maps such as this one of Quivet Marsh Vista, where all we would really have to do is take these coordinates right here, plug them into a GPS, and be able to find each corner boundary. And so that's really important because one, it brings us to, if you see the little name right here, CB, that's a concrete bound placed there by a professional surveyor. So what concrete bounds look like are something like, excuse me, just gotta, something like this thing right here, where that is a professional surveyor placed that there and the location is known. They did all the math, they did everything they needed to do and said, this concrete bound is exactly here. And so from those, corner bounds, we can use some of the headings and stuff like this and the directions to find where these lines lie. And so this is a survey plan of the hay conservation house. Here's a hay house right here and the whole property line and everything like that. And so these corners are marked by some of those concrete bounds. And so from those known locations, we'd be able to use these headings to be able to lay exactly where the line is.
Hey,
So,
John,
yeah,
I just want to interrupt real quick for anyone that doesn't know the Hay property, because we have some new volunteers. The Hay property is where the Brewster Conservation offices are located on, and it's John Hay's old homestead. John Hay was a naturalist, a writer, and one of the co-founders of the Museum of Natural History. And we were able to purchase his house and approximately 59 plus acres that became conservation land. So when you come to field training tomorrow, that's where you're coming.
yeah. Thank you, Dee. Appreciate that. So yeah, just to go back to now, we'll move on to the field work, which is what we will be doing tomorrow. So this is just an overview. So after all the office prep work is done by one of the staff members, we will go into the field with the deed, a survey plan, and a GIS map like this one. This is of Windmill Meadows if it's created. Again, these GIS maps are really good to be able to use a GPS device and just plug these coordinates in. And we can just find these to direct us to where these corner bounds are and where we start. And so if we don't have a GIS map such as this, we'll just start off with a bounding sketch. You can even have a copy of the survey plan and just sort of, it's so you're able to take notes. And so when you are able to find a corner bound and you can start walking the lines, you'll be able to get the GPS coordinates of those areas. So the next time you come out, or say a monitor comes out, it's much easier for them to locate where the boundaries are. And so this is just a fieldwork pack field equipment list. We have backpacks of all the equipment that's needed. We have 2 GPS units, tape measures, flagging tape, all that stuff, small rakes. So those concrete boundaries that I picked out, sometimes those were placed, back in the 50s or even the 40s or something like that. So they can be buried. So it can make it a little difficult to find, but luckily, they are magnetic. So we are hoping to buy a magnetic locator, and that would make it easier for us to locate stuff that has been buried. And so on top of that, there's stuff like the safety vests, which is really important, especially now because it is hunting season. Although there is no hunting on places like the Hay property and stuff like that, it's always good to have one of those safety vests as well, just so you, especially when you're in the field and everybody can just be able to see each other much clearly. And so notifying abutters, this is important too. So a lot of our properties abut neighbors and stuff like that. And one day they'll just look out and see a bunch of people walking around what looks like their backyard. So we don't want to alarm anybody. And so what we like to do is send just a little postcard, just letting them know at least a week beforehand when people plan to be in the woods behind their house, just so they're not alarmed or anything like that. And it also kind of opens up that door for conversation with the neighbors as well. Like they might come out and join us and talk to us just to ask us some questions about sort of that stuff. And so again, you have to bring your documents. You may need more than one boundary sketch. Not all the information might be on one. This one that I listed, that I showed you here, doesn't actually list all the where the concrete bounds and everything are. So you'll have to dig through other survey plans to be able to find that. But that's okay. And so first, what we want to do is locate any known boundary monuments. So I mentioned this before, those are the concrete bounds. And so that's where you're starting at a known point. You don't have to do any math. All you have to do is find that spot and be like, okay, I'm starting here. And so if you don't have the GPS coordinates of that, and if they're not that accurate, GPSs are accurate up to 15 feet. The really good ones, phone GPS devices, can be as accurate as 60 feet. And so when you're talking about precision and needing to know exactly where something is, that's where sort of GPSs and GPS phones kind of lack. So, the coordinates that you're given with the GPS can be 30 feet off in any direction, or up to 60 feet off, or anything like that. The ones that we have, if they get a really strong signal, can be as accurate as 10 feet. And so that's good for just sort of a ballpark area. And so if you do find one of those boundaries, you'll use something called waypoint averaging. And it's something that is just an option in the handheld GPS that records a location over several minutes. And then it takes the average of that location. And that way you can have a much more accurate location. Um, so yeah, if the boundary is not found, we'll just use the GPS coordinates that were given and make sure that it's marked that it's not found. So save the boundary coordinates, and we mark the boundaries with PVC pipes. So in the field, a lot of this stuff, gray is a color that we see a lot in the woods, gray and brown. And so the concrete bounds or wooden survey stakes, those can tend to blend in. So what we use are PVC pipes. The white kind of really stands out a bit more. And some pink flagging tape to mark bounds as well. But the PVC pipes are what we use to mark where the boundaries are. Even if there is a concrete bound there, we will put a piece of PVC pipe right next to it and a label signifying what it is, where it was found, or when it was found, and the coordinates that we are given. And so that will just be a good record for us. And it would be a good record for anybody else who tends to stumble across this boundary and they're like, what is this thing? And they're like, oh, it's a boundary marker. Pretty cool. And so it's all about trying to make it easier on the next person to go out there and locate the boundaries. And it's easier on ourselves and everything like that. And so one thing I do want to stress is if you do find a boundary marker and you get better coordinates, be sure to write that on these GIS maps. As you can see here, it says CB approximate. These haven't been ground truthed. And what I mean by that is this was just made in the office. These exact coordinates and exact lines we actually haven't gone out into the field to find these things. And then you can also write these up with some significant landmarks. So say there's a giant boulder or a glacial erratic or something like that. You can get the coordinates of that and locate it on the field. And it's just so it's easier to orient yourself when you're actually in the field. Because when you're actually in the woods and you're looking around, it can be pretty hard to actually figure out where you are without those sort of boundary or landmarks. So yeah, so approximate boundary line using marked corners and compass. So quick show of hands, who here has used a compass before? Oh, perfect. All right. Good. That's good. That's good to know. Yeah. So compasses, as I'm sure you guys know, just need a little bit of experience to really get the know-how for them. And so what we have here is, so we have a compass that can go all the way to the minutes and seconds, which is as accurate as probably as we can get with a compass. So that's it's good for figuring out where the lines are and everything like that. So we'll just go over a quick tutorial on how to use a compass. Yeah. So everyone can just read this over on their own time. There's also an REI video on YouTube, which is really good. And again, it's just find and locate known boundary monument using the survey plan and GPS. And then orienting yourself with the compass. So if we were to start here, we were to start right here and we want to find this guy right up here, we would need the heading north 16 degrees and 22 seconds west. And so to translate that into a compass bearing, unfortunately, we have to do a little bit of math. And so we pretty much subtract the heading from 360 degrees. And that would give us, this guy right here. Magnetic declination, though, is something that we have to take into account. If anybody's not familiar with what that means, it is pretty much the true geographic north pole, Santa's workshop, isn't what the arrow points to on the compass. What the compass is pointing to is magnetic north. And magnetic north is just where, the magnetic fields of Earth kind of collide pretty much. I'm butchering that, I know. But so those don't line up. And actually magnetic north tends to wander over the years. And so this is what declination is. It's the difference between magnetic north and Santa's workshop. And so I added a little link right here so you can figure out what our magnetic declination is. Let's just go to Brewster, search map. And Brewster's magnetic declination is negative 14 degrees and 35 minutes or seconds. And so that means we want to go to the northwest, and that's where our magnetic north points. So we have to subtract 14 degrees and 35 minutes, and that's where we get our heading. 329 degrees, 24 minutes, and 38 seconds. And so we line that little guy up, that little red indicator there, with our heading above here. We keep, they say red in the shed, but right now we have green, so green in the arrow, I guess. Can't really come up with a good thing for that. And then that's when we start to orient. So we follow our red indicator line while keeping the arrow in the little triangle right there. And then that is our heading, and that's the line that we are walking. And so to make it a little more accurate, you can break this distance up. So 839.58 feet. You can divide that up into 8 sections of 100 feet. And so you take a tape measure and you walk 100 feet and you mark a spot. Make sure you're staying on that line the whole time. And so breaking those long ones up into sections can only increase your accuracy where the line is. Because when you're in the field, you'll run into things that are like boulders, not rivers, gulches, trees, bushes. So it won't always be pretty, but it'll still be able to give us, as accurate as we can get with a compass, which is really good. It's all about that general idea of where we are and being able to show that. So yeah. So does anyone have any questions or anything?
I'm just going to remind everybody here that you will not be expected to go out by yourselves and do this.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Dee.
You'll always be with one of the staff people or a senior volunteer that's done this before, so you won't have, you won't have to go tramping through the woods on your own doing complicated math.
Yeah. Thank you for Dee. We expect that a staff member, either me, maybe Mary, will always be with someone out there. Again, it's good whenever you're out in the woods, whether you're monitoring, boundary crew marking, it's always good to bring a buddy. And just some other things. Ticks are an issue. Poison ivy is an issue, although it's not as prominent in the winter, but ticks definitely are. So if you plan to be out in the woods, be sure to wear tuck your socks in, wear treated pants. Permethrin is really, really good. That's what I have on right now. So just those sort of things. Yeah. Anyone have any questions about that? Was that clear enough? I may have gone through it pretty fast, but it's just to give us a general idea of what to do. It might all start to click into place once we actually are out in the field and doing all of it. Especially when I mentioned, finding some land markers like a big glacial erratic, the hay house has plenty of those. And so it'd be good to sort of orient yourselves with that sort of thing. Cool. And again, how many people have signed up for tomorrow? I think it's everybody. Awesome. That's great to hear. Good. Well, if there are no questions, either I did a great job or I wasn't clear enough on anything and everybody's confused. Brett, you look like you wanted to say something.
I just wanted, could you talk about what we'll be doing tomorrow?
Yeah. Okay. So let me pull up what the hay house map looks like, what Mary has made. So what we're going to be doing is going through an exercise of boundary marking here. So at the Hay House, there are a couple boundary markers already. And so the first thing we'll be doing, let me see if I can pull it up a little bit better. First thing we'll be doing is trying to locate boundaries that have already been marked by a boundary crew in the past, just so we know where to, just so we can sort of make sure we're doing it correctly. And from there, sorry, I'm having a tough time pulling the map up. Here we go. Boundary sketch file. All right, so let me share the screen with everybody. Perfect. And so this is the Hay property with one of those boundary sketch maps that I had mentioned. This was done by Mary again. And so the first thing we're going to be doing, we're all going to meet at the Hay House, and we are going to be trying to find some of these marked bounds. Some of these already have concrete bounds, they already have PVC markers, and we're going to be using their GPS coordinates and locating those. And then from there, we're going to be trying to find some that aren't marked already. So I think there's a couple over here that have yet to be marked or found, might be further down this way. So first things first, we're going to use what we know, what I've went over, what the packet says to find ones that have already been marked, and then we're going to go out and try to mark a couple. Does that make sense? Yeah, perfect.
John, how do we know which ones have been marked and which ones haven't been marked by looking at this map?
So it should say, yeah, right here. So Hay property approximate bound, that means it hasn't, that means there is no found concrete bound. Surveys, spike, concrete bound, stuff like that. So it's a little,
There's little stars next to the ones that have a stake placed at them. I will say though that this map, I haven't updated it since my first summer as the intern. So I'm not sure if there have been any other stakes placed at bounds.
So right now you can see 1, 2, 4 stars. I think there are a few more, but Mary and I can go out there and just confirm some of this stuff anyway. So yeah, great question, Dee. Thank you.
Okay, have the neighbors been warned?
Not yet, no. So I'm breaking my own rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
We did have a question just about how long they'll be out there tomorrow. I just answered approximating not longer than an hour. Is that a good approximation?
Yeah, an hour will be great. I don't expect us to get all of the bounds marked. This is really just an exercise in how to do it. So it's really just to get everyone familiar with it. Make sense? Perfect. All right.
Bruce, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wondered, is the office open in general to pick up property booklets, or do we make an appointment, or?
Yeah, the office is basically closed to the public right now, which includes volunteers. So yes, we're asking if you can just make an appointment, just email John or myself and yeah, just arrange a time. And we can either leave them outside for you or leave them on a table just inside the door.
Thank you.
And just for the new folks, we are, following all COVID protocols, safety, cleansing things, Purell. We're all super, super safe at the office.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions about anything? No. All right. Well, I just want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. Tomorrow, we're meeting here at 9. We're starting at 9 a.m. So if you want to get here maybe 10 minutes early, I'll be able to give people things like their safety vests, hats, stuff like that, to give us some time before we get going. Yeah.
And some folks are coming at
Yes,
10:30,
and some are
John.
coming at 10:30. Thank you.
Yep. People that are with us here are on both times.
Cool. All right. If there are no other questions about anything, I think we can end it.
Thanks. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you
Yeah,
tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, everybody.
Bye.
All right.
Hopefully it'll be warmer. See ya.